Welcome to a new video! Today I'm going to share with you my Altergeist deck profile. Now Altergeist is a very simple and straightforward trap control deck that's basically just also a little bit of annoying, let's just say that, because this deck has a lot of tools that are very cool. It's not as strong as it used to be like back in the day in Flames of Destruction, but it's still very fun to play. And I also just wanted to give you something short and sweet because I didn't really have a lot of time to put something bigger, but I still wanted to create more videos rather than just have one a week. I want to go back to 2 videos a week. But before we jump right into the video itself, I'm going to remind you that if you want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It helps a ton, and it's also just motivated me to create more. Let me know in the comments down below what trap choices that you will go for. Give a like to the video if you enjoyed, and without further ado, let's jump right into the list. Alright, jumping into the deck list itself, we're going to start things off with the 3 cornerstone monsters for the Altergeist monsters, which are the 3 copies of Melee-Seek, the 3 copies, or should I say Multi-Faker, this is Melee-Seek, and then the 3 copies of Marionetter. Multi-Faker, Melee-Seek, Marionetter. All of these start with the letter M, so I also like to call them the 3 M's of the archetype, and you also play 3 of each and every single one of them, so that also kind of fits. But in the case of these monsters themselves, like I said, they're the cornerstones because they basically just how the deck kind of work. In the case of Multi-Faker, which is the most important one, if you activate a trap card, except during the damage step, you get to special summon this card from your hand. Now this card can also special summon itself by the effect of by its own effect if you add it from personal spooping, apparently, when you activate it, so that's kind of how that works. I don't know, it's kind of like a weird thing with the ruling of this card, but you're able to special summon it from your hand, even if you added it like as a part of the effect, because it's kind of was activated. But regardless, the point is, when this card is special summoned, in general, you're able to special summon another Altergeist monster from your deck, except another copy of itself, but you lock yourself to special summoning only Altergeist monsters for the rest of the turn. So this card is really good because it's giving you the ability to just swarm your boards with the monsters that you need. For going second, it's also just really nice because you're able to get, for example, like 2 monsters and link into an Hextia, or maybe link climb, like, you know, when you're going third turn or going second with an infinite permanence. It's just really good. So this card is basically the most important one. The card that most of the time gets it to your hand beside personal spooping is Melee-Seek, because when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add in any Altergeist monster except another copy of itself. Another effect that it has is that it can attack your opponent directly, and if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you're able to target a card your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. This card is just also very important because, yeah, it's just really easy to summon, or should I say link summon it into like a Link Karibo and trigger its effect and getting a Multi-Faker, and just also the searcher of the archetype where it comes to your monsters. The last monster that is important and you want to play at 3 is Marionetter, because Marionetter on activation, which is on normal summon, able to set an Altergeist trap directly from your deck to your side of the field, which we have 4 targets, and it doesn't trigger Ash, so that is really good. But the other important effect is that if you're basically have this card on your field, you're able to target 1 Altergeist card you control and 1 Altergeist monster in your graveyard, send that card that you control to the graveyard, and then special summon the monster that you targeted in the graveyard that is not the same card. It's kind of like a weird thing with it, but this card is very good, and these are the most important 3 monsters of the archetype. And then for the rest of the Altergeist monsters, which we have additional 3 more, we have 2 copies of Squantalis, 2 copies of Pukari, and the 1 copy of Kinkuri. In the case of the most important monster to summon with the Multi-Faker effect, it will be Squantalis, because Squantalis is basically a Unicorn Kirin, or Unicorn Magispector Unicorn Kirin, the card that is banned, because this card allows you to target an Altergeist card, other one that you control, which will be most of the time the Multi-Faker that you summon, bounce it to the hand, and then bounce an opponent monster or card in general that you want to. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard from the field, you're able to target an Altergeist trap in your graveyard and set it to your side of the field, which is, or should I say, add it to your hand, which is really good. As for the case of Pukari, Pukari is your mini code, or should I say microcode for this archetype, like Cyphers have their one that can be used from the hand for the link summoning of Code Talkers. This is basically does the same thing, but only if you use an Altergeist monster for the link summon of a Altergeist monster. You're able, for example, take a Squantalis and this in hand and link summon into a Hextia, which is nice. But the other effect that is also in the graveyard is that if this is in the graveyard and you link summon an Altergeist monster, you are able to once per duel add this from your graveyard back to your hand. Now, granted, when we had Link Cross, which is the card that is now banned in Eternity Code, this card would have been absolutely amazing if we got it there as a free off. But right now, it's still a good card to just allow you to see the Hextia. I don't think you need to run this card at 3, but I still think it's just good enough to run at 2, because again, like I said, Hextia is very important. And then the last monster is Kinkuri, because it's another just good monster to summon it with Multi-Faker, big body, where it comes to her defense, and also just negate a card on the field, and also kind of like a mini battle hand trap as well, so that is just another reason that you want to run her. But that does it for the Altergeist monsters, and then for the last monster that we run, because it's the best monster hand trap right now, is 3 copies of Ash Blossom. I don't think I need to explain this one that much, so yeah, you want to run at least one set of monster hand traps, and the other one will be Infinite Impermanence that you want to run. But that does it for the monster lineup. Now I'll move on into the spells, and for the spells, the only 4 spells that we'll run are 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance and Cold by the Grave. In the case of Pot of Extravagance, it can be Pot of Prosperity if you prefer that one, but I think Pot of Extravagance is definitely better because this deck prefers the additional resource rather than just like, you know, care about the extra deck that much. You are going into the Hextia, which is important, but it's not the worst thing in the world if all 3 copies get banished. It's just less preferable if they will get banished. Let's just say that. If you want to run Prosperity and just get a targeted card and you think that's better, go for it. But I think Extravagance is still very, very good. The reason why I also run Cold by the Grave is because I want my Multi-Faker and maybe Extravagance and other cards to maybe go off, so that's why I run this card. In worst case scenario, you can also set it to your side of the field and make it into like a mini DD Crow kind of effect, which will then interrupt your opponent, so running 1 copy of Cold by the Grave is not bad. But that does it for the spell lineup. For the traps, 3 copies of Personal Spooping, 2 copies of Altergeist Protocol, 1 copy of Altergeist Manifestation, and the 1, unfortunately, proxied copies, because for some reason I don't have it, of Altergeist Marbled Rock, or Hunted Rock, sorry. This is the card that you kind of just need to run for a mini combo. More than that, you just don't really use this card effect, although it does have an okay effect, I guess, to negate traps by sending an Altergeist monster from your hand to the graveyard, but for the most part, you just use it for its own combo potential with a Marionetter and Milliseek, because this card can be activated the turn it was set by an Altergeist monster, I believe, or just, you know, an Altergeist effect. You activate it, you send the Milliseek from your hand to the graveyard after you set it with the Marionetter, and then you use the Marionetter secondary effect to send this to the graveyard, revive the Milliseek, use Marionetter and the Milliseek, link to a Hextia, and then the Milliseek will search for you Multi-Faker, which is very, very good. So you basically got yourself 2 cards that can use this to basically get yourself the best card in your entire deck. So that's the reason why you want to run Marble Rock. Now, if you don't want Marble Rock, you can always cut it down, but I think as a one-off is quite fine. As for the other trap here, Manifestation that you run as a one-off, it's basically Call of the Hunted for Altergeist, and then if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish the card from the graveyard and then add an Altergeist trap from your graveyard back to your hand. Which is fine. We don't really use that for that effect because the only trap that you want to add maybe is a Protocol, which you run into anyway. But it's just a Call of the Hunted that you can kind of recycle anyway with Squantalis, so a one-off is just completely more than enough. However, the most important Altergeist trap in my opinion is Protocol, because Altergeist Protocol says that the activation of the effects of Altergeist cards activated on your field cannot be negated, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then when your opponent activates a monster effect, you're able to send another Altergeist monster, or should I say Altergeist card you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and destroy that card. So this card is basically another interruption by itself, which making this card absolutely ridiculous. And if you have, for example, like, let's say a Manifestation inventory, like, equipped to a monster, which sometimes I do that with Squantalis, you basically use the effect to send this to the graveyard, and then this Squantalis will go to the graveyard anyway, and then get this back to my hand anyway. So that's kind of actually really, really cool about that. and it's kind of like an interaction of a loop that doesn't really stop. So I do love this card a lot, and it's basically the cornerstone where it comes. Like, if you don't have really any other thing, you still, like, you use Marinator effect, you set this to your side of the field, and you still have some kind of a play for a monster negate, so this card is very important. In the case of personal spooping, you can shuffle an Altergeist card you control or in your hand into the deck, and then add any Altergeist monster from your deck to your hand, which does trigger the effect of Multi-Faker on activation. So this card is very, very important, and it also can just get rid of cards that you don't want on your field or in your hand to just generate the additional advantage or particular things that you specifically need. So 3 copies of personal spooping is very, very important. But that does it for the Altergeist traps, and then for the additional traps that we run just in general, we have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, which you have to run at 3 in my opinion. This is basically a bell, or should say like a hand trap that also works really, really well with the deck due to the fact that it does trigger a multi-faker, so going second, this card is also very, very good. You have to run this card at 3, just in my opinion. If you don't have the access to it, it's unfortunate, but it did get enough reprints in my opinion that it's just in a reasonable price that you maybe be able to get it. But if you don't have the ability to, well, that's a little bit of a shame. As for the rest of the traps, the rest of the trap can be up to on your own personal preference depending on your own pocket metagame, but what works for me right now is 3 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance, 3 copies of Crackdown, and 3 copies of Solemn Strike, which is just a really, really good lineup for traps. Solemn Strike is just a monster negate and a special summon negate, which is really good. Crackdown to steal stuff, and Anti-Spell Fragrance to just turn off their lightning storms and other really annoying spell effects, and turn basically the adventure engine wide off. So I love this card to just deal with that at least for a turn, and then you just generate enough advantage to maybe send those cards to the graveyard if they decide to set them for some reason, and you also just in general just buy yourself a lot of time to just do whatever you want. But that does it for the main deck for Altergeist. Now we'll go into the extra deck. And for the extra deck, we'll run 2 copies of Altergeist Memory Gant, 1 copy of Prime Banshee, and 3 copies of Altergeist Hextia. Hextia is definitely the most important Altergeist monster because this card says that it's gained the attack equal to the Altergeist monster that it points to, and it's really, really good because when you revive it from the graveyard, it can also point to a monster regardless from the right, so that's really, really nice. And then when a spell or trap effect is activated, you contribute an Altergeist monster you control, or should I say this card points to, and then you negate the effect and destroy it. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add an Altergeist card from your deck to your hand, which is also really good. So Hextia is your main monster, or just a spell and trap negate. You have this, and let's say like a multi-faker in your hand, and let's say also a protocol. You basically got a multi-faker that also summons Squantalis, which is a bounce, and you have this which can tribute a Squantalis to then get yourself the spell and trap negate, and you have the protocol which then make your effects go through whatever, and also just in general also just negate a monster effect. So this card, absolutely ridiculous. You have to run this card at 3 in my opinion, just really, really good. Prime Banshee is just a good one-off that allows you to tribute another Altergeist monster, to special summon an Altergeist monster from your deck, which is, it's fine, it's not really that amazing, but it's allowing you to cycle for whatever you need. And the main boss monster of the archetype that you want to summon most of the time is actually Memory Gant. Memory Gant is really good, a lot more than you think. You don't need to run this card at 3, but it's very, very good. This card is the newest card for the archetype and also Squantalis, but you know, they've been a while here, almost a year, but it's the first time I'm playing with them in this particular, you know, online list that I'm showing you, or should I say I'm showing on the channel. This card allowing you that as during the battle phase, as a quick effect, you're able to tribute one other monster, and this card gain attack equal to the tributed monster attack on the field, which means that let's say you have an Hextia in this, and your Hextia have a 4300 due to the effect that it's pointing to a Memory Gant. After you attack with your Hextia, you contribute it with a Memory Gant, and Memory Gant will become 60, or should I say 7100 because of the 4300 of, not 43, 41 I'm not good with one. Actually, it is 43. I'm stupid. 43 plus 28, that's 71. I don't know why I doubted myself. That's basically the stats. And if this card destroy a monster, an opponent monster by battle, you're able to basically destroy one monster your opponent controls, and basically this card can attack again, which is very, very good. And if this will be destroyed by if this card will be destroyed, you can banish one monster from the graveyard instead, which is just making this card just able to survive whatever. So that is really good. Also, I would say, should I say, be destroyed by battle. So it's not like a Colossus, but it's still very, very good to just prevent you from losing this card for battle effects, I guess. But that does it for those, and then for the rest of the Link monsters, honestly, most of them you don't really use, but for the small ones that you do use, 3 Relinquished Anima, 3 Linkaribo, which is probably the most important one, because Linkaribo is just absolutely amazing in this deck. You link Melusik, and you summon this, you search with it, and it's also just saving you in battle, so 3 Linkaribo is really good. The other one that I kind of also thought about maybe running is the Artemis Link monster from Magistus, because it works with all spellcasters, but for the most part, Linkaribo, you just want to get it at least once on your side of the field, and if you're playing Extravagance, you could risk like banishing all 3 copies, or 2 copies if you're playing 2 less of them, so I at the very least want to run 3 copies of this card, so yeah. And then for the last Link monsters, I run 1 copy of Dark, which unfortunately I have to proxy, 1 copy of Lina, 1 copy of Unicorn, and of course the 1 copy of, should be access code, but I don't have the access code, if you have the ability to. Lina is really, really good, even though the only monster that you technically have is Marionetter. It's still very, very good to have this as an option, so that's why I run this card as one-off. Dark is a little bit more easier to summon and is just absolutely good in the metagame and just in general, because the Dark Charmer is just so powerful because it can still almost anything. But still in light monsters is also not that bad, so that's why I run this card as one-off. Unicorn for spins, and Boreal Sword / access code / Avermax, whatever, should be your other way to just OTK beside Memory Gant. But most of the time you are just going to summon Memory Gant because you're going to lock yourself with the multi-figure, so yeah. But that does it for the list of Altergeist. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, nothing really much to explain about them. This is basically a trap deck, so, you know, you're just playing for control, but if you're able to go with OTK with Memory Gant, you will go into it. But mostly the entire idea is just control the board and just outsource your opponent and just annoy them to death. But that does it for the list itself, like I mentioned. Now let's move on into the next deck choices. Alright, so for the next deck choices, I'm going to do this short and simple. Basically, the 3 returning options from last week, which will be, I believe, the other control deck that I mentioned, which I believe was Frogs, then Dragoonity, and the last one, which is the Glirolusk. Let me know which one of these that you want to see. And the last one will be basically kind of Plant Link, I guess, which is kind of just, you know what I mean, it's kind of like Sun Avalon, but without the Adventurer package, because I want to show the more budget fun version that still works and still very, very fun to play, and I know that some people don't have access to the Therians and Adventurer as well, because it's a little bit of an expensive build. But yeah, that's pretty much does it for the video as an overall. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something new maybe for the deck. I doubt it because it's Altergeist, but still, if you enjoyed, once again, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It helps a ton. Let me know in the comments down below your own choices, and give a like to the video if you enjoyed. And that's pretty much does it for me. So, stay safe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.